Hey everyone, a big welcome back to our next episode of Balancing Acts by Forging People. Today we're talking about a really important topic, the power of sport in building community. When this kind of subject really popped into my head, there were two standout people that I really wanted to go to talk about this, and I was really fortunate enough they both agreed to give up their time to be here today. And they are amazing people that are going to introduce themselves very shortly. Balancing Acts are a series of completely free to access webinars. So they're free to access live. They'll also be free to access through the YouTube channel afterwards as well if you want to catch out the recording. And we are all about taking a unique perspective on issues that affect everybody, not just from a well-being perspective, but actually as a big part of what these two guys do as well. So for those who haven't met me before, my name is Nick Elston. I'm a mental health speaker, an inspirational speaker on the lived experience of mental health. It is a proper job, I promise you. It's been my job for about 10 years now, so it's paid the mortgage enough, so it's fine. But also with the other part of what I do, I'm a transformational speaking coach, and it's not about presentation skills, as you're about to bear witness to. It's about changing our narrative to change our experiences. And again, both of these characters today, they are so personally intertwined around what they do professionally as well. I know that's going to really align to what we're trying to do here today, is to give people a four-dimensional approach on a really important topic. All of my insights and my experiences and the stuff that I do is based on the principle of lived experience. So I'm not a coach, counselor, nor a guru, and nor do you want that in your life, trust me. Far too empathic for that, just agree with everybody. But for me, the gap is the engagement. Why is it that when we need help, we don't reach out for help? So when I tackle these subjects, I like to surround myself with amazing people that actually know what they're doing, ethically, morally, and for insurance purposes. But Forging People, my business, we bring you these sessions. But Forging People came from a line in one of my early talks that in life, we can either allow our adversities and our challenges and all the things that we experience in life to negatively impact us for the rest of our days. Or maybe we can choose those things to forge something better, to forge something beautiful, to forge something powerful, something that wouldn't have existed without you going through your stuff in the first place. Two of the guests I have today, both Adam and Aaron, are amazing people to have in my corner when it comes to their expertise as well. And you'll be hearing from them very shortly. We work in lots of different spaces, not just in organizations, in corporates. That's a big part of what we do. But we also work in the media with BBC, ITV and Sky. In the US and Canada, we work with NBC. We work in the frontline environments for the military, for the NHS, the fire service and the police force. And do lots of different things. I mean, personally, my crowning glory is host and creator of KFC TV. I trained all my life for that gig. I'm 24 stone and 6'4", hosting a fried chicken TV station. So who says dreams can't happen? But all of my career has been built on this principle, giving people an unfiltered look into the worlds that I delve into. And if I ever reach it as a country music artist, this is going to be my album cover, so you never know where this stuff goes, right? But first and foremost, our wonderful guest today, Adam, the amazing Adam Tutton. Adam, do you want to introduce yourself, my friend, and tell people who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so welcome everyone. My name's Adam Tutton. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Bristol Rovers Community Trust. Bristol Rovers Community Trust is the official charity of Bristol Rovers Football Club. Very lucky to have been in position here for 15 years now, so one of the longest standing members of staff at the football club. Began my career here as head of education before working up through the charity. My background has been very varied, as a few of you will know, ranging from everything from a winner of Come Dine With Me, through to producer of Vindaloo, the World Cup song. So it's been a very strange path to end up where I am. But I have to say, in all honesty, I probably think I've got one of the best jobs in the world. I use the power of sport, the brand of a football club I love and I've always loved, to engage and elevate and improve the lives of people across the city.
Love that. I knew about the Vindaloo track, but I didn't know about Come Dine With Me. So maybe that's a rabbit hole we'll dive down later on. That's cool. And following that, Aaron Clark. Aaron.
Hello.
Good friend, Aaron Clark. Aaron, tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Thanks, Nick. Much appreciated. Lovely to be here, and hello, everybody. Long story short, I guess is the best way to do this intro. A man of many hats, with many hats, always had a number of things going on all at the same time, lots of plates spinning. That's like how I like to live. That's how I like to operate. I thrive best when there's lots of things going on and there's no time to do anything but sit down and do nothing. Very much an individual that's been involved with the mental health sphere for 10, 15 years now in various different roles, particularly around supporting young people in youth development, sports coordination, physical activity, mental well-being, lots of work within the military sphere as well, so supporting military personnel, veterans, etc. And the founder of a not-for-profit organisation that started in 2015 called Mental Health Muscle, which absolutely used sport, exercise, bodybuilding, recreation as a vehicle for driving change in terms of supporting those with mental health challenges and difficulties. I have my own lived experiences. I live with my demons on a day-to-day basis, manage them very well now, didn't once upon a time. And very much all about just making sure that people feel safe, secure, and have a sense of purpose and belonging to what they're doing. And using sport and kind of exercise as a real way to do that. I'm a firm believer that sport is a hugely beneficial thing to be involved with. You know, that movement, simply just getting out and about and participating with other people and building those really strong communities is a really safe and powerful place for people to be. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. We could be here all day if I told you everything, but that's me. That's me, Nick.
That's probably the most concise intro you've ever done. So well done.
I think so.
That's really good, actually.
Thank you. I've been working on it.
Yeah. I guess a question for both of you, really, because given your work primarily, like I said, you were both involved in lots of different things. Given your work in the community trust and given your work with Mental Health Muscle, why is sport such a unifying force in what can be a very diversive world? And certainly there's a rise in maybe a lack of compassion, maybe an increase in social anxiety. There's lots of different challenges out there going on by kind of big world events. Why is sport remain such a unifying force in communities? And again, I'll start with Adam on this one, and then I'll hand over to Aaron.
I think probably in the first instance, we often look at sport as a team. And to me, teams are about people coming together in some way. And I think immediately, if you think of that model of people coming together, sharing an output that they want from that, it's got to resonate, to bring people together, and I think immediately I think of sport. For some reason now, sport, teams, mental health, it all combines for me. And that's been, I have to be honest, it's been a more recent thing. But certainly at the moment, that's what I think. I think as that team, I understand we have independent sports, but obviously for me, sport started, particularly at the football club, as a team sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really important message, actually, that even though you have more individual sports, again, it's all about commonality, isn't it? So individuals coming together in that sense, and the commonality of having a shared purpose and focus. And certainly those were the roots of Mental Health Muscle, Aaron. How did that kind of manifest in bringing in a community of people, bearing in mind that you were bringing together a community of people that had challenges?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think for me, sport and exercise it's kind of that. It's that urgency and confirmation of people's self-worth, and it provides that to people in abundance, doesn't it? It gives people a sense of purpose in a lot of different ways, different variations, but that sense of purpose is really much felt when you're involved in a sporting environment. It's very much about identifying yourself and feeling valued. I think there's a lot of in terms of belonging with sport, and that helps unify that force and bring people together and build those communities. And, our motto very much about being stronger together. And I'm a true believer of that. When you are together and you're having those adversities and you're facing those challenges, but you're in a room or a space where everybody else is also experiencing those same challenges, that can be very powerful. It can be very endearing, and it really does make you feel much more safe and secure, but also recognize that you're not alone. And I think sport has a lovely way of doing that. There's something for someone everywhere within sport. It doesn't matter what you're good at, what you're not so good at, where you come from, what your background is. Sport is very accepting in that sense, and it kind of unconditionally loves everybody and wants people to participate. And I think that's the powerful thing about sport, and the community that comes with that, I think, can be hugely beneficial for people, particularly if they're feeling isolated, particularly if they're feeling alone. And I'm coming from a very kind of mental health and well-being perspective here, but I do feel like where there isn't a lot going on for people who are really, really struggling, sport can often be that really powerful escapism and that outlet for them to join a part of and feel a sense of everything that they're missing elsewhere in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. I mean, the one of the best, as a Bristol Rovers fan, one of the biggest moments of joy you see on the pitch are usually the ability team celebrating their awards and celebrating their victories. It's just such a beautiful thing that actually that sport can be that thing that breaks down barriers, and it's not just around ability. For example, it can be around age and walking football. I know that's a big part of what the club are about and the trust. But also when you look into things like the rise of women's football as well, and something that wasn't always had the platform that it deserves to have and has now. Adam, you've been pivotal in this, and I know you won't say this very openly, but you're award-winning in what you do as well. How important is it for you to tackle the barriers and even the taboos around some of the things that you've been able to champion over the past few years?
I think you've made a very important point there, Nick, when you mentioned about the ability team who you see on the screen there now. The ability team at Rovers is made up of people with a range of barriers. What we try and do, as you say, is remove those barriers in any way that we can. And I certainly agree with you. When we've had the team play at the MEM, I remember one of our participants, Adrian, scoring a goal, taking off his top, running into the Blackthorn end, and Goodnight Irene being sang. I actually cried, and I mean that, because I think that was, for this young person who had trouble accessing the world of football, to be at the home where he loved and score that goal was one of the most beautiful moments I've seen. So it's about breaking down barriers, removing what we can. Sometimes it can be something as simple as access. A lot of the people on here, in the past have not been able to get to training sessions. So we've even gone as far as putting on coaches from the club where we pick up people from certain points. And I think if you're trying to provide for people, the first thing you need to do is speak to those people with lived experience. I can very much easily think, well, what is going to be the barriers for somebody with a disability, somebody with autism? I don't know. I think I know, but actually where we found it works is by talking to those people with lived experience and saying, what is stopping you engaging? What is stopping you taking part? Once you start to listen to those people, half the battle is done, because then we have the power to break down those barriers and take them out the way. And that's what we've done, not only obviously with the ability team, but certainly from the women's team, which obviously, after 5 years, we've just handed over to the club. That was also an issue. We changed things with the women's game. One of the things we did at the women's sessions very early on was to have music playing. Mm. Now, I wouldn't have ever dreamt that would have changed someone's attitude towards a training session, but that's what the girls we worked with suggested, so that's what we provided. Yeah. And I could go on and on.
Love that. Thank you, Adam. And Aaron, from a muscle point of view, we all have that kind of stereotypical image, a stereotypical view of the bodybuilder, of the weightlifter, and that's not as a gender issue, because male and female, but there does tend to be that kind of alpha mentality of people that wouldn't necessarily drop the mask, or wouldn't necessarily, that's kind of like the outside assumption, right? We've had this conversation on the podcast episode that we did together, but how did you manage to engage a community that weren't used to talking about these issues around mental health, and actually break that barrier down within that community? Because it took on a lot of speed in a very short space of time, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the very simple thing there was the element of empowerment, and actually allowing someone who is bodybuilding, is involved in exercise, is involved in sport in whatever capacity, particularly within that gym environment, to have a space where they know that they can talk about it and no one is going to judge them. Sport judges nobody. Bodybuilding judges nobody. Unless you're standing up on that stage in a competitive format nobody's judging you, right? And actually we're all in that gym, we're all bodybuilding, we're all lifting those weights for the same reason. And actually that same reason commonly is to improve our mental space, not our physical space. The physical space is a byproduct. It's an additional thing that we're in there for. Yes, it's great to look good and look like you've trained for 5 days a week, but actually the mental clarity and the mental improvements that you can get from being involved in that kind of element of work are huge. And I think that was really, really obvious when you start bringing those people into a shared space. It's really obvious that very soon everybody's starting to pick up on that one point, is that actually we're all here for our mental clarity. We're all here for our mental improvement. It's not here because we want to look good and have big muscles. That's great. But actually I'm here, and I know from my own personal journey, the gym has, and I'll credit the gym for this for the rest of my life. It has saved my life in a number of circumstances. Being able to access the gym, work out, lift those weights, leave your troubles at the door for a few hours, pick up a dumbbell, clean and jerk a barbell, lift a few, plates, etc. All of that very much is about my mental space and my mental reasoning. And I think that's very much shared. And you'll see it across the bodybuilding industry. Lots of bodybuilders nowadays, particularly now rather than 10 years ago, are far more keen and able to open up about their mental health issues and the reasons why actually they started the gym in the first place. And actually bodybuilding for them, although for some people can be an obsession and can become a bit of an addiction, for sure, like anything you do 24/7, it's a bit of an addiction, can be. There's a lot of people that say, you know what, I do this for this. I don't do this for looking good. That's just great, and I'm good at it, and I've got good genetics. But actually, I do this for good mental space and good mental clarity, and that absolutely emulates itself through everything the mental health muscle did. That's common.
You've both mentioned lived experience and how powerful that is in both of your respective worlds. I've very often used that kind of the thinking of lived experience is the perfect vehicle to drive engagement, as Adam showcased there. Lived experience was the vehicle to drive him to provide the right engagement for his community. And Aaron, again, this picture shows you having those kind of conversations with the community that were not open around having these kind of conversations before. Aaron, on this one, I wanted to you've mentioned the mental health benefits as a summary, but actually what are the mental health benefits of the regular exercise that you talk about and that you showcase? But also you mentioned about lived experience, and I know that your experiences range from being kind of part of the military family right through to being a bouncer on the door kind of thing. How can you bring all of your lived experiences together and actually engage people to focus on the mental health benefits of what you do?
I think it's transparency, being honest, being really raw. Typically, and we've had this discussion before, Nick, haven't we? Typically, I was a rugby player at quite a good level for a number of years, a doorman, all of the big alpha male roles that you would never expect someone to step forward and say, do you know what? I struggle. And actually, it's okay to struggle. You can be, a strong, heavy bodybuilding doorman 6 nights of the week, but actually struggle. And I think that kind of relativity, that honesty was really, really important in kind of creating that space. I think from my military background, I understand that kind of imposter syndrome, that man box syndrome, whereby you grew up with that expectation of actually every male in the world that existed was strong, showed no vulnerability, showed no weakness, was able to do everything for everybody, be the best that they could be in everything that they did. And I've definitely carried that mantra throughout my life. But I think it's about making that clear and understood, so that actually for everybody who's experiencing those troubles or experiencing those challenges can relate to it and understand it and actually put it into the context of their own lives. You don't have to have been from the military, but I think as males, particularly young males growing up, we all have that sense of expectation and the need to do the best and be the best in everything that we do. And that's great, don't get me wrong. I'm a great believer in competitive edge. I'm a great believer in winning. I think that's really important in people's lives, that there has to be an element of winning and being the best and doing the best. I think that's really powerful for growth and development. But there is also this element of actually, if I'm not the best, that's still okay, and I'm enough. And sport provides that area where I can just be me. And I've written it down in my notes, like sport allows you to be you in whatever capacity that looks like, whether that's bodybuilding, playing football, throwing a ball across the room with your friends, going for a run, whatever it is, it gives you that kind of permission to just be yourself. And I think when people can start feeling that and accepting that and recognizing that on a day-to-day basis, it allows us to thrive and be the best versions of ourselves.
Thanks, Aaron. And Adam, I guess you also operate in, or at least predominantly in, an alpha male environment, and obviously there is a clear distinction between the community trust and the football club, and the playing side of the football club especially. But there are going to be crossovers. There are also going to be the work that you do with young people, and very often young people that would have experienced challenges. How do you start to kind of do the work that you do, and in terms of mental health benefits for the people that you help? What are the kind of the improvements that you see when you give people focus and direction? Because it's so inspirational what you do, and maybe you don't even see. Maybe do you? I'm not sure if you even see the results. That maybe you see them further down the line.
I think going back, very similar to Aaron. I think I do recognise the benefits without a doubt. I think I need to take it a little bit back because sadly, 10 years ago, I lost my wife after a long protracted battle with cancer, and following the loss of her, I was left with two very young daughters, and they were primary school age. I was a male. To bring up two kids on my own, and my mental health obviously at that point went really downhill. I became very within myself. I didn't want to go out. I started to eat more. I started to drink more, and that had a knock-on effect in my inability to parent. And I'll be honest with you, it was a long conversation with my mum and dad. There was a bit of a come on. You've got to pick yourself up. You've got two girls here, and it wasn't about being an alpha male. It could have happened to a female, But at some stage, I needed to do something, and exercise and sport was what got me out of that rut.
Wow!
It gave me that energy. It gave me just waking up in the morning and not aching because I just slept for 14 hours because obviously I was depressed. Starting to talk to people within it, I saw the benefits it had, and they were very, very clear. It turned my life around, and, I'm very glad to say now my girls are very happy, healthy, and thriving in life. From that, I have now tried to push those mental health benefits. We all know the physiological link between exercise and happiness and dopamine release and all these sorts of things. They exist. I'm not a scientist, but if I go on the internet, we know that those facts are there. We see it a lot with the groups we do, just that ability to come together. I'm delighted Taylor Moore, one of the Rovers players, has just come to us and launched a walking program, a walking exercise program, which, hopefully we can talk about later, which is already, we've got 50, 60 people involved in that project. So, yeah, I'm a massive advocate for it in any way we can. And as you said, we've got several programs that we run at Rovers based around physical activity, the joy, the actual physiological effects that can have on somebody, and the impact that has on people's lives.
Thank you. And wow, by the way, I did not know that actually, Adam. So thank you so much for sharing that about your own experiences too. I guess as a follow-up question, because I do go down rabbit holes when we have these kind of conversations, to both of you really, is there a risk that very often if you are using your own experiences, that you can be more inclined to take on the challenges of other people that you're trying to help? So it's that kind of what kind of psychology calls the wounded healer, that you end up giving and giving and giving until you drop. How much protection do you have in place to protect you whilst you're helping everybody else? And again, that's a question to both of you, whoever wants to jump in first.
Yeah, exactly kind of reflects my journey, if I'm honest, Nick, that exact point. When I first started Mental Health Muscle, it was very much about, I knew I had my own demons, I knew I had my own issues, but actually helping other people and recognizing that other people needed help was far more important, and that became a huge priority for me. And actually, after 7 years of doing that, inevitably led me to severe burnout, mental and physical, because all of my time and energy went into looking after other people. And I'll be proud to say it, saving other people's lives on a number of occasions through what we were doing with Mental Health Muscle and the events and the support and the provisions that were in place. But actually, each of those success stories with other people eventually started to add another drop of water into my own vulnerability bucket. And at which point my vulnerability bucket then just overpoured to the extent that it wasn't just dripping, it was absolutely flooding and pouring out the sides like some sort of tsunami. And I had no release, and I was unable to recognize it quick enough. And that led me into a really quite dark place, as you well know. And, so for me, absolutely agree with that. I think there's this sense that when you're doing a good thing and you're involved in a good thing, the emphasis is on making sure that everybody else around you is okay. And actually, we do neglect ourselves. And I think since that experience, the last 4-5 years, my focus has been very much on ensuring that actually there is that balance, and that when sport disappears or when exercise disappears, there are other alternatives that we can turn to support ourselves, rather than just putting all of our eggs into one basket. I'm a huge sports advocate. I've been a sportsman all my life, played rugby, football at quite good levels, etc., bodybuilding, whatever. But there has to be other things in place. And I think for a long time, I didn't recognize that at all. And it was just Mental Health Muscle, nothing else. Everybody else was needing support, not me. And then I got to a point where I thought, oh my goodness, I am in a place where I now need help. And so it was the blind leading the blind. And ultimately that doesn't work. So I'm no good to anybody if I can't recognize and look after my own well-being as well,
Yeah, absolutely. And Adam, same question to you, I guess, that you're fueled by such a personal passion, and which really does explain like the wonderful energy you put into what you do. But what about for you, actually? How do you kind of put your own boundaries in place, I guess, whilst you're helping everybody else and helping a whole city?
I think where I'm lucky is obviously the charity has grown, grown rapidly over the last 15 years. We started as a charity where there was 3 staff members, and we now have 15 full-time staff members, 4 part-time staff, a huge bank of volunteers. Where I try to keep myself grounded is working with a team of people. That's what I'm blessed with here. We share our ideas. I've got a community manager in Matt Bennett who I work closely with, who I've instructed to say, when I'm getting carried away, which I tend to do, he has that authority to say, come on, Ad, let's pull it back, let's focus. And we're better at that as a charity now. As you said, I think the mental health route is an area we're really, really focusing on at the moment. And actually what I would rather do, and this is generally in sport, charity work, in the past, it used to be about numbers. Oh, how many people are you engaging with? Oh, we're engaging with 5,000 people this week. It's 120,000 people this year. It's very different now. Now it's about impact. Funders, funnily enough, actually now look for those stories of impact. They used to ask if the Premier League or the EFL were providing us money for projects. It very much used to be about money. Now it's about impact. It's about case studies. And actually, I think Aaron said, if I can turn around and say the work we've done has saved one life within my career, I'm a happy man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. I want to talk about leadership and how, in particular, sports programs or initiatives inspire leadership. And maybe even an additional question to both of you, actually, what leadership means to you. Again, Adam, if we could start with you, like you said, 50, 60 programs that you run at the moment. I mean, how does that inspire leadership? And what do you look for in leadership, both personally and in other people?
I think one of the things I'm most proud of at the charity here is that we've had staff training this morning, funny enough, and we looked at our full-time staff, and 50% of our full-time staff has come through the education program that we run here at Bristol Rovers.
Wow.
It takes students through from a BTEC for 2 years. They end up doing a degree in 3 years. And 50% of my staff has now come through that program. For me, a great leader should almost be seen to be doing very little. Leaders that are running around all the time panicking, that to me isn't leadership, because a leader is somebody that is confident enough to put his trust in those below him. I always think of the great leaders as the great chess players, and they've got a board in front of them. The pieces are there. A leader's need is just to move those pieces as and when needed. And I am blessed. I'm really, really blessed that the leaders I have within different departments here, those that run with projects, be it health, inclusion, education, sport, I'm confident enough to let them do it. That makes my job great, because I can then look at the bigger picture. I can look at the strategy.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And to hear that percentage of people coming through from your own programs is phenomenal. So yeah, massive well done. Aaron, and you, my friend, talk to me about leadership.
Yeah, so I spent 5-6 years in sports development, and a lot of that was around leadership and kind of young people in the local community stepping forward and becoming something that they never believed they could be. And I think leadership's a massive part of that. And whether that was a young person leading, whether it was a young adult leading, whether it was me leading as the facilitator or the educator or the coach, I think leadership is about empowering the people around you to be the best that they can be with the tools that they have. And actually, it's not necessarily telling people what to do or telling people how to do it. It's saying, I have your back. And actually, you have a lot of characteristics, traits, strengths, abilities, skills that I know you can step forward and do this. And actually seeing people being able to thrive and do that, starting in a place where actually they had little confidence, little value, little sense of belonging, little understanding of themselves and truly what they're capable of. And within a very quick space of time, stepping forward and being like, I can do this. I'm now leading a team of 10 other people. I didn't know these people 10 weeks ago. Now I'm leading them. Now they're listening to me. I'm inspiring them. I'm empowering them. I'm doing all these things. And I think for me, that's what leadership is about, right? It's that kind of momentum to have a group of people around you with those shared values, those shared understandings, that shared interest, not manage them and direct them and put them on some sort of dictatorship, but actually saying, you have the ability to do this. I believe in you, go out there and get it. And I think that's good leadership. And I think that's what sport allows people to do. The best leaders on the sports pitch or the best leaders in the gym are those that say very little, but they create an environment where people can thrive and they feel safe and able to really be themselves and do whatever that they're capable of.
Thank you. This one's really, I guess, for Adam. And you mentioned Taylor Moore's initiative. I wanted to kind of ask you about the process of how that actually came about. So you kind of loosely explain what that looked like, but tell us through right from the idea, from the concept to the actual delivery of what is now turning into a really fascinating, powerful project.
So within our charity setup, obviously Bristol Rovers badge is 4 quarters, and what we've tried to do is put all of our work within what we call our 4 quarters of impact. Much like the Bristol Rovers badge, it's 4 quarters. So within that, we have sport, inclusion, health and education. And all of our projects, regardless whether it's an over 60s project, a mental health project, a food-based project, they fit in there somewhere. Every year I get, I'm lucky enough to do a presentation to the first team players. It's one of the powerful things we have is being able to utilize the brand of a young male or female footballer to push what we do. And we do a presentation to the first team where I sort of tell them, unfortunately, that believe it or not, deep in their contracts, they are actually contracted to do 6 hours of work with us a week. That's 3 hours of commercial and 3 hours of community related work. It's the same every year. There's a look of horror on every football player's face thinking, I've got to do 6 hours within the community. But what we do tell them is you'll probably end up doing 6 hours over a season. At the end of this year's presentation, Taylor Moore came up to me, sat with me, and he said, could we have a chat? He said, I'd really like to do something around mental health. And I was like, okay. I said, well, Taylor, firstly, thank you. And secondly, I've been doing this presentation for 15 years. You are the first player who has ever come to me with an idea for a personal project.
Wow.
And I asked him, where's that come from? And incredibly movingly, he sat there and he said, just before Christmas, my mother tried to commit suicide.
Wow.
And I was really, really taken aback that a young footballer was prepared to share that with me. And he said, and I want to make a difference because I understand how difficult it can be to talk. And he said, and I want a simple program. And he said, all I want to do is get Rovers fans, City fans, football fans to come together. I will lead it and we'll have a chat. And it was the most simple project. And we launched it last Thursday night, led by Taylor. We went down to the docks and we had over 50 people coming along. Taylor even printed out himself some conversation starters.
Wow.
He was worried a few people down there might not even be able to start a conversation with someone. He made sure that he spoke to every single person that was there on the evening. And the event was a great success. So sometimes, you know, the best grassroots initiatives come out of places you wouldn't imagine. And like this, I hope, will be one of them. I've already got the PFA, the Professional Footballers Association, loving the concept. And we're hopefully looking to pilot this across the country.
That's wonderful. And like I said, to hear it's come from a desire to do it as well. And
Yeah.
I think that's phenomenal. Absolutely is. Community is a big part of both of your worlds in that sense. Resilience is, I guess, such a massively overused word now. It means different things to different people. But I guess in terms of forging communities, kind of making them stronger, Adam, I know you do a lot of work around the Christmas period with food banks and lots of different things as well. So it's kind of multifaceted. But how do you believe sport can build or help build resilient communities away from the actual sport itself? And again, Adam, on this one first, please.
I think it's giving people the recognition that they are not alone. You know, you look at that photo you've got there. That's a photo from a couple of years ago of our over 60s group. You know, a lot of the people in that group were particularly affected by COVID and the isolation that brought. You know, at that stage, we were still going out as a community trust and doing garden gate visits to people. People, I feel, often build resilience, you know, by being supported. And that's what we try and do. You know, we're not going to fix all the ills in the world, but what we can do is give people a safe space to recognize there are others out there. You know, they can build strength from that. They can build relationships from it. And, you know, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky in the role that we do, that we work with so many different groups of people, from the young people trying to build resilience in what we know is a very difficult world at the moment, to the opposite end of the spectrum when we've got old people like this that are still suffering from the same issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Aaron, I guess I wanted to ask you the same question, but this time more so the work that you do in supporting military and veterans, and for the work you do on that side of things. For me, it's a community that can often be neglected, difficult to engage sometimes. And again, that comes from obviously my experiences of working in that space as well. What do you feel that the long-term benefits of having resilient communities are to help in engagement?
Yeah, I think resilient communities allow us to tackle life's challenges and life's difficulties in the best way that we can. If you are part of an already very strong, resilient community and you have a presence there and you feel a sense of value and belonging to that community, I think that does go a long way in ensuring that our kind of swords are sharpened and our shields are strengthened in terms of any life challenges that we might face moving forward, whether we've experienced them before or not. And I guess particularly from that kind of veteran space, that military environment, that armed forces world, you have a lot of people that have developed really good resilience, but equally a lot of people that haven't, and they are all inevitably a part of that same community. And so the ones with the stronger resilience go really, really far in supporting those that don't have great resilience. Resilience isn't something that we can build up overnight. It's not something that you go to bed without and wake up in the morning with all this resilience. Resilience for me, and there's a lot of variations to this, as you rightly said, you know, resilience is built up in those most challenging situations, those darkest, those pit areas that we have in our life. We develop and we progress and we learn the most when we're in that most difficult position in our lives. And within that military sphere, there's many that have been in those pits and in those places where things seemed a little difficult, and actually there wasn't a way out at that point. So resilience is really built. So for me, it's huge. And every community I think that you are part of, you have an element of resilience in there, and for some people there isn't that resilience, but being a part of the community ensures that you can just pull those others along with you and help build their confidence and their kind of vision moving forward, for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And both of you have been, your success through what you've done, I think, is exemplary. And the reputation that you've built, and the fact that you live and work in very visible spaces. And we all know things like social media, and there's a lot of strong opinions, a lot of platforms to share these opinions on. You both have to navigate that to some extent around kind of reputation, and you both thrive. I guess the question I wanted to ask you, against the backdrop of what Adam mentioned around COVID, actually, that my work with students in the younger generation, certainly in the past 4 years, one of the biggest impacts that the whole COVID years and the pandemics happened is actually its impact on self-esteem and its impact on confidence, our ability to aspire, our ability to set goals the way that we used to, because we kind of been forced back into survival mode all the time. We're not looking ahead so much. Whereas both of you are kind of pioneers of championing building confidence and self-esteem. So I guess the question to both of you would be, based on your own experiences, what would you say to people about engaging in sport and its effect on confidence, self-esteem, and personal growth? And again, open question. Whoever wants to take it first.
Yeah, cool. Go on. Sport is, I think, one of those environments. It's one of those industries that is unquestionably an opportunity for everyone and anyone to be involved. And I think participation wise, mass participation wise, there is something for everybody within that sporting arena. I think in terms of, offering that personal growth to people, there are so many things that you can do within that sporting arena that can allow you to test your abilities to deal with difficult situations, allow you to learn the skills that not only you can operate within a sporting context, but also in your life. That resilience, that understanding, that emotional regulation, that actually sometimes we don't achieve everything, and that's okay, because we can set more goals to get to that point. We can set those small step achievements. We can celebrate success. We can celebrate the things that we're achieving, and all of that sort of context is really important in terms of that sporting personal growth. But it can be taken outside of that environment, whenever you feel like it, to then be utilized within that kind of real world operating life journey. And I think for me, that's really important. For example, Mental Health Muscle, so many individuals that became a part of that community, a part of that world, had absolutely fixed mindsets, were not shifting, had not shifted for a number of years, months. And actually, when they become involved in something that empowers them, budges them, gives them a boost, allows them to show their confidence, allows them to grow, allows them to prosper, allows them to progress, all of a sudden, everybody's growth spectrums start going up and up and up and up, and they don't even know they're doing it, but they're surrounded by that positive sense of, we're in this together, we can do this together, you're not alone. And actually here, right now, in this space, you can be the best version of yourself if you want to be that best version. And so you create that environment where people are just allowed to flourish, allowed to grow, and allowed to develop. And I think that's really powerful. And I don't know where else you get that, where you do with sport.
Thank you. And Adam, I guess same question to you. You seem to give people a voice who wouldn't necessarily have that voice, or to give them an opportunity or a platform that they have. So by default, I guess that work that you do with self-esteem and confidence in public personal growth, it's a huge part of what you do. So what's your kind of take on this?
Yeah, I think it's going back to your point of the society we live in, particularly if we're talking about the young people I work with. Young people is a major part of what we do here. We obviously run a very large, successful education program. We've got Bristol Rovers Community College. But I think what we find with a lot of the young people we come with, particularly as your point, social media, I think social media is caused so many issues, particularly for young people. I think it was exacerbated through COVID because that's all young people had. And what you seem to have there was just images of instant success, okay? Personal growth and success in sport doesn't come overnight. I think Aaron touched on this earlier. It's that idea of having to work through things. You aren't going to win every game. You aren't going to win every bodybuilding competition. You aren't going to lift the biggest weights in the room every time. We unfortunately have a society of young people that want instant success. They see it on the telly. Oh, I'm going to become a YouTuber and I'm going to be wealthy. It's not life. And I think what we try to do and what we're able to do through sport is to show these young people that actually you've got to put in the hard yards, okay? And a term I often use, I think when I was younger, I spent far too much time in the head teacher's school at Tutton, in his office. I always remember that. But one thing I always remember, apart from being terrified, was he had a poster on the back of his wall of a guy skiing down a hill. And it stuck with me forever. And it said, success does not lie in being the best, but doing your best. And that stuck with me forever. You know, we aren't the greatest at what we do as a community trust in all areas, far from it. You know, there's other bigger, better things. There are other bigger, better football teams. But if we know we've given our all and we've really, really tried, that to me is personal growth. And that is success.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I guess I wanted to wrap up just again saying thank you to the guys here, to Aaron, to Adam. I know each of them would be really happy to connect with you, answer any questions that you have. And I'll give you a place shortly to kind of send those questions too if you want. So parting wisdom from me, I guess I just wanted to throw into the mix about kind of being able just to engage in stuff. There's so much out there to engage in and stepping up. And as Adam quite rightly said, is actually taking that leap from being the observer and potentially the critic to actually just throwing your cap into the ring, stepping up, starting to get involved in what's out there. There's so many things to get involved in even in a small way, whether it's kind of walking, swimming, engaging with your local football club, community trust, joining your local gym or your local community. For me, it's just about doing that initial bit, because the initial bit's always the scariest bit. And hopefully today is kind of broken down some of those barriers for you and actually those introductions to Aaron and Adam. And I know they'll definitely be happy to hear from you. So big thanks to Adam, big thanks to Aaron. And if you have any questions, you can find us at the email address I'm going to give you right at the end. But before I go, our next Find Your Voice live event, our in-person event in Bristol, is our 31st of January. So if you're looking to kind of step up your public speaking skills, then the 31st January all-day event, please do join us for that. Our next Balancing Acts episode is next Monday, I believe. We have a Buddhist monk, the former campaign officer for Campaign to End Loneliness, and myself talking about loneliness, isolation, and happiness. Again, three of the subjects that these guys could actually be really useful for as well in terms of tapping into their information as well. So we've got a whole new range of guests joining us next week. And you can reach us at nick@nickelston.com. It doesn't go to anybody else apart from me. If you have a question for Aaron or Adam, I will introduce you by email so that you've got that connection. This recording will also be on YouTube very shortly, next 24 hours. We also have the podcast, which is the Nick Elston Show, which has 8 seasons on Spotify or Apple, or the platform of your choice. Big thank you for joining us live today for those who did. I'm going to end the recording now before we come back to the room.